Okay, so today is another proper Yarn Scrap Friday because we're going to be playing with our yarn scrap balls again. I will tag a video below where I show you how to make these, but we're going to be making these really cute little, it's not a crochet project either, it's going to be a weaving project today. So if you followed my festive mini make crochet along in December, you'll remember that one of the free gifts in the Crochet Society Advent calendar, not sponsored, was this tiny little weaving set. So I thought we'd have a play with this today because it's such a great little yarn scrap project. So these little yarn scrap balls are made up of just scraps of yarn, and I've just knotted them together like this, and they kind of change every so often like this. And what we're going to do is make one of these out of all your yarn scraps and one with some just white cotton as well. And I'm going to just unravel a little bit of this to begin. I think we stop on the blue, and I'm just going to unpick this little knot. These are knotted in a certain way, but they're kind of hard to undo. And what we're going to do is use a few yarn scraps to begin. But we're going to get the white yarn scraps first. So these again are just white cotton scraps, which you can't see, but they're just knotted together as well. And we're going to get our little weaving set, and I'm going to choose the one with the most pegs because I think it makes a better little mini doll's house rug. If you wonder what these could be used for, they could be placemats for doll's houses. They're just a really fun project for using up yarn scraps. And we're going to take one end, and I'm just going to feed that through the hole on the side and tie that into place. I'm going to do a couple of knots because it keeps it a little bit tighter. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring this down to this little peg, and I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to just go up and down. So we're going to come down to this little peg and wrap it around the front, come up to the one that's directly straight up there, and then come down and then move one over like so. So I'm kind of like skipping a peg either side just to keep the lines straight. And don't worry if you have little knots appearing with our yarn scrap. It all adds to the kind of rug texture of our mini rug project. Okay, and because I've ended up at the bottom, I'm just going to bring it up to the back. Then I'm going to cut my yarn and feed it through the other hole and tie that into place. Okay, so once you've connected it to this corner as well, I've only got the one piece going over the back, which we're just going to ignore. We're going to get our scrap yarn pieces, and I'm going to leave this end because it's a sort of thinner yarn. I'm going to leave this one for the very beginning. So let's go to the other end and thread this onto our little weaving needle thing. I'm sure it has a technical name, and I'm sure I remembered the technical name, but I can't remember the technical name. And we're just going to secure that with a little knot. Okay, so if you've done weaving before, you probably know this, but for the sake of those who've never done it before, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with going either under or over. It's up to you. I'm going to go under, and then we go over the next piece of yarn, and then under, over, all the way across, alternating, going under and over. Okay, we're just going to pull that through, and this has come undone. So of course it's come undone because I'm recording. So I'm just going to tie these back together. Okay, and I'm going to leave those little ends on there because that's what I love about this scrap yarn project, is all these like little ends, whether they're cut down or not, they just add texture to your little mini rug. Okay, so I'm going to pull that through, but we're going to leave a tail for sewing. I'll explain that in a minute. Then we can just use our little comb just to push that down to the bottom. Okay, now we're going to go in the opposite direction. And this time we do the opposite to what we did here. So we can see we went under this one here. So this time we're going to go over. So we do the opposite. then under, over, under, all the way across. So we always do the opposite of the previous row. Okay, pull that through. And when we pull it through, you want to be careful not to distort the edges. So we're just going to leave it a little bit loose like that. Get our comb and push that down. And we can see that's still quite loose. So now we can just give it a little pull and then stop before it starts pulling in the edges. Okay, then we'll do a couple more rows. So this time, because we went over this last one, we're now going to go under, do the opposite, under, over, all the way across. Pull that through. And again, just be careful not to pull tightly. So we leave it loose at first, push that down, and then if we want to adjust it, we just then pull very gently. Okay, so I'm going to do one more row and then we're going to secure our ends. So it's under there, so this time we go over, all the way across, under, over, under, over. Okay, again, just leaving that a little bit loose, get our comb, push it down, and then adjust as needed. Okay. Okay, so when you've got a few rows, we're going to use this tail end for securing our ends. So always try and use like a thinner, cottony type scrap yarn piece if you have. Okay, so keeping the working yarn out the way. What we're going to do is we are going to count over 2 stitches, 2 of these white stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to sew up through the first and second loop roughly. Okay, let's bring that through. Okay, then we're going to go under those 2 loops, but before we pull all the way through, we're going to thread our needle through the loop to do a knot and give that a nice pull. Okay, and then we're going to, again, coming under those 2 loops, but coming up between those first and second row, we're going to sew over, just sew over as normal. Okay, don't pull too tight. And then we sew under those 2 stitches. But before we finish the loop, we're going to thread our needle through the loop and give that a pull. Okay, and it creates a nice knot. It will be a little bit distorted, but don't worry, that does disappear over time, as you can see with these finished ones. Okay, so to show you one more time, we go under the next 2 loops, but then we're going to come through the first and second row of our weaving. And then just pull that through as normal, all the way through. Okay. Then we come under those 2 stitches again, but before we finish sewing, we thread our needle up through the loop and create a knot. Give that a nice pull. And that's going to secure these ends so everything doesn't unravel at the end. So I'll do that all the way across. And don't worry if you just have like one left by itself. We do the same thing. I'm just going to sew up through there as neatly as I can, and then I'm just going to come through that last loop, then through the loop, and create one final knot. Okay, like so, and then we can neaten up our project, get our working yarn in the right place. Then you can just give it a little stretch just to unravel any tension. Okay, and then we can remove our yarn needle, leave that tail end, and carry on with our weaving. So then we just carry on. We're going to, we can see we went over the last one, so we're going to go under this time and doing the opposite. And we just continue all the way until we get up to the top. And if you run out of scrap yarn, just add a new piece with a new knot, just like I did here. And carry on. So that little pull, and use our comb to push that down. Okay, then this time we go over, do the opposite. Over, under, over, under. And it's really fun because as you get new pieces of scrap yarn appearing, it's so fun. You just follow the same pattern. Again, don't pull too tight. I'm just going to leave that knot in there as well because it's going to add interest. And eventually it's going to swap to the new colour. So I'm just going to repeat this until I get up to the other end, and then I'll show you how to finish your project. And you can see I've now reached the brown. So again, just adjusting gently so as not to distort. And every so often you can just give it a stretch. There we go, we're slowly shifting into a new colour. I love it. Okay, so once we get to the end and we just can't add any more rows, and you may even want to swap from this to a yarn needle just to get through a little bit easier, we're just going to secure the ends like we did at the beginning. So I'm going to try it on the fluffy yarn. It's better to do it with a cotton yarn, but we'll give it a try. So what we're going to do is I've ended up this side, and I'm just going to go under the 2 first loops. And then before we pull, see, it's already causing me problems. Before we pull it through completely, we're going to come through the loop like this and just secure that as a knot. Okay, I think I may have to swap to a cotton yarn. Okay, we'll do that first knot, and then I'm just going to undo this and swap it to a cotton yarn. It's just too difficult. Okay, so I've just knotted on some cotton yarn instead. It's a little bit easier, and I can leave that little tail end there. Okay, so we've gone through the first 2 loops and knotted it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the back, so in between the last 2 stitches worked and the next 2, and then just like we did down here, we're just going to sew over. So count, let's move that tail end out of the way, count 2 stitches over, then 1 row down we're just going to sew from the back to the front. Okay, just ignore that tail end for now. Then we're going to go under those 2 loops, and before we complete, we're going to just come through that loop and create a knot, okay, like so. And repeat that, find the next 2 loops, 1, 2, go onto those, and then down 1 row and sew over, just sew over normally. Then we go onto those 2 loops again, but before we complete, we go through, thread through the loop, and create a knot. And we're going to do that all the way across. Okay, I'll thread my needle again, go on to the next 2 loops, and then down 1 stitch, 1 row, sew as normal. Then under the 2 loops, through the loop, and create a knot. Okay. Okay, and when you get to the end, I just have 1 stitch left, so I'm just going to sew over and down through the thread. I want to catch some of that thread, something like that, just going through that last little loop and sew over. Needle's always coming off. Sew over. Oh, let's do that again. My days. Okay, we're going to go onto that last loop and then just sew through the yarn. So it's catching on something. Sew as normal. Then go under that last loop, then thread through the loop and create a knot. Okay, like so. Then we just need to just sew over and hide our tail end. But we can do that at the end. I've just sewn to the back. Okay, now we're just going to undo everything. So we're going to turn it over, and these little loops here, we're going to cut from the back. So I'm just going to trim right in the middle so they're even. like so, just to release those. So do that all the way across. Okay, so I've cut all those, and then I'm just going to cut through there, undo that, and then cut through this end as well, and we can release the top half. Let's just cut that out. Come on, let's trim that knot off. Okay, so that's now released, and then the bottom will just fall out. We can trim down this tail end, and this end, what we can do is just trim that to length and then cut through these loops. Okay, and then what I like to do is just using maybe a yarn needle is just fluff out those little cotton end. Don't pull too hard though, because even though it's secured and knotted, it'll still come out. So I'm just going to gently fluff these up. There we go, we're pretty much there. We just have this tail end to hide. So I'm just going to sew over to secure that. Then just cut that down. And that's it, we're done. There we go. There is our tiny little mini woven rag rug with yarn scraps, a little yarn scrap rag rug, and it can go with our other little rag rugs. And these are really fun little projects. You could use it as a coaster, you could use it in a doll's house. It's just a really fun way to use up yarn scraps. And of course you can scale up the size of your little mini loom. I'm sure there are slightly bigger versions, but I think they're all over the internet, you can pick them up. But I really hope you enjoyed this slightly different tutorial. Hope you managed to follow along. Huge thank you as always to our Happy Berry Plus members and our YouTube channel members for helping make this video possible. And I really hope you'll have a go at making your own yarn scrap yarn balls and having a little woven fun. But I'll see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Thanks for watching. Bye!